Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. My name is Jeff Sharon. We got Eric Lopez in the house. We got the student of the game, Kyle Nash, in the house. We got Bryson Turner in the house. Boys, we can smell it now. Football's right around the corner. We got uniforms that are coming out on Friday. We still don't know who the quarterback is as of recording, but
Kyle's covering the NFL game on Friday. He's
yeah,
going to go see
Kyle
Griffin.
Kyle out here,
quest for
Mr.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Mr. NFL Insider out in freaking Canton, Ohio, man, like at the Hall of Fame, rubbing elbows with the greats.
I did come across Jack Youngblood and Chris Berman in the hall after the ceremony. That is true.
Did you talk to them?
I did talk to Jack Youngblood. Yeah, I mean, the funny story, a mutual a friend of ours, Elo, in Chris Hill, the captain, who I work with a lot, had seen Jack Youngblood's gold jacket at the dry cleaners and talked about, pointed it out and all that.
How would you like to do that? Run into an NFL Hall of Fame gold jacket at a dry cleaner?
Well, no, he just saw the jacket. So when I'm walking through, I'm looking at the bust as one does when there's, traversing football heaven, as Marshall Falk dubbed it. And sure enough, I happen upon none other than Jack Youngblood. And I told him the story. I said, hey, Mr. Youngblood, I know you live in Orlando, right? He said, oh, yeah. So my buddy was telling me how cool it was that he saw your jacket at the cleaners the other day. He won't wait till he gets a load of this, right? He had a good laugh out of that. So,
and there's Kyle Nash's name drop of the show.
That's right.
There you go. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about what we know from football right now. We have one more scrimmage this weekend. It's not open to the public, as far as I know. Uniform reveals. Kyle? I know. Uniform reveals coming out on Friday. This is actually, I feel like we're on the cusp. We might find out real soon. That's why we're recording this late on a Thursday, because I wanted to give everybody enough time. Chances are by the time you hear this, we may already know. I don't know. But if our luck is anything like that. But we have our first Olympic sports preview interview. Tiffany Sahaydak, UCF women's soccer, gets to join us. And their season finally back to normal after they had back-to-back spring 21, fall 21. Now they're back to a normal schedule, and they got some scoring that's coming their way this season. I'm really excited to see what they have to do, so we'll hear from Tiff. And we also talk a little bit later, we'll talk about the Big Ten's television deal and the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame inductees as well. So, big show, but let's go ahead and get started with UCF football practice, which continues apace as we are now 21 days as of this recording. We're recording this Thursday night, August 11th, 3 weeks from the opener, boys. And Kyle Nash, you've been hanging out around pressers and the team. What do we know?
First of all, give shouts to my dude, Bryson Turner, stepping his game up, doing the dang thing on Tuesday, throwing that down too. He talked to T. Will as well. But I'll say this, when I was there during the morning of this recording, shall we say, you mentioned that air of football is coming, like winter if you're a Stark in Winterfell. But anyways, no, so too many TV wrestlers.
Brace yourself.
Right. But the punchline is when offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey mentioned 3 weeks, there was a visible lift in the room when he uttered those words upon the mic. during the press conference in question. Now, obviously, he didn't announce a new starting quarterback, but he seems to be going out of his way to mention the maturing and development of one Thomas Castellanos. Hey, like any good coach that wants to see a player do well, get his recognition, he's probably up there. Call it a Herb Brooks kind of thing, who coached the Miracle USA hockey team, getting his assistant coach out there in the press conference when they acted like he was taking too much spotlight. No. In this case, Coach Lindsey definitely did his part to make sure Castellanos is getting his credit and for what he's doing in the camp, even though we both know, or we all know, that the biggest targets to start are obviously John Rice Plumlee and Mikey Keene. But say all that to say, I asked him too about the defense, as he's calling plays against them on a regular basis. And, he's enjoying the fact that they actually expanded depth just between spring and summer. We've been talking about this amongst ourselves on our various group chats about that depth being an issue on the defensive side. And it was interesting hearing his perspective on what improvements he's seen. And a little bit, had him talk to us a little bit about the banter, about the alleging that Bryson would have witnessed on Tuesday about the defense dominating the scrimmage, as they would have you believe. Did they dominate so much is really kind of what they said. But, I got to give Coach Lindsey credit. He talked about the bantering between T-Will and the coaches and how that kind of carries into the team to keep struggling or rather reduce the struggle in battle through the grind of camp. So,
every time I hear about that, I think of that Joe Burrow clip. You know the one I'm talking about?
There are Joe Burrow clips.
Well, yeah, but like there's that one where he's breaking down the team to start practice at LSU. It's a senior year, the big year that he had at LSU, and he said, and he gets under, and he calls out his counterpart, the defensive captain. I forget who it was.
I have
seen. You've seen it floats around on social media, and he's like, "Hey, you ready for us to get after that? You know what over there?" And like now, Kyle, you've had the benefit of actually playing, which the three of us never have.
Right.
Okay. So, how for those of us who haven't been in the trenches like you have, how real is that? Like in summer practice when you're getting ready to go, like it's over. This is the end, and we're going to get after you today.
I'll tell you what, and it's one of those things where you've just been staring at this other dude in practice, and for me, it happened to be the best player on the team, who was our defensive end, the defensive captain, Dan Turcotte was his name. And I, as a relatively new player, I was battling him, and it was special, though, when we got to the actual black and blue scrimmage. It's black and blue, because that was the color of our jerseys. You can't see it in the video here. But
where were you in high school?
No, I was actually playing semi-pro ball. I did not.
Where are you playing semi-pro ball though? That
was here locally in Orlando. It was for the Orlando Rage for the Southern States Football League.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, with Jacksonville Jaguar fellowship participant for the coaching program there, for the diversity coaching program there. PJ Jack is my quarterback. Anyways, so. I see all that to say it was different, after practice, you get that first scrimmage in, and there was some next level stuff. I played in a way I didn't know I was capable yet. And it was just the first scrimmage, gentlemen. I mean, I got a lot of playing time as the top backup on the O-line at that point there. And it just hits different. You hold blocks a little bit longer. You press linebackers down the field just a little bit more because it's live. So yeah, it's real.
Are the non-XFL Rage still a thing?
They are not. They changed names and ownership some time ago, and turned out that's a good thing with the XFL returning to town.
Probably a good idea there.
Right? What's funny about that is I know that they were the result of when the Orlando Panthers merged with the Orlando Stars, and one season I actually did play-by-play for the Stars when I was in college at one point. So, anyway, for the three people who know anything about that, I'm sure.
I'll tell you, I've known Kyle for a long time, and I just found out we both have a mutual friend that he played with just now on the air, which we'll have to talk about off the air. And Dan Turcotte, the Dan Turcotte. But shout out to Dan.
Yeah.
But obviously everybody wants to know it's the quarterback position, Kyle. And of course we have two guys in the mix, and Gus has been saying we're gonna hopefully have
Kyle would lead us to believe there's three, or actually no, Coach Lindsay would lead us to believe there's three.
Hey, that's good to hear. But
trying to throw us off the set. We're on to you, Coach.
Here's my thoughts here, Kyle, because I watched Gus's reaction after the first scrimmage, because he's been saying up to this point, hey, we'll probably name a starter after the second scrimmage. Usually the team knows by that. He was asked after the first scrimmage, he's like, well, it doesn't have to be the seconds. We kind of backpedal a little bit. He's a little Michael Jackson backpedaling there, moonwalking. So my theory is I don't think we're going to have a named starter anytime soon.
Yeah.
I think we will. My prediction, I think Mikey Keene will take the first snap against South Carolina State. But I think all the quarterbacks are going to play. And I think both him and Plumlee are going to play a lot. I think partly because of strategy, because you want Louisville to focus on tape on both guys. But I don't think we're going to know for real who the quarterback is until we see them play somebody else, whether it's maybe after the South Carolina State game, or it might be even after the Louisville game before we have a better idea of who's going to be this guy. Do you buy that, Kyle?
No, listen, that's a strong take by you, Eric. Obviously, none of us truly knows, is the point you often make to correct those who, like me, who pontificate a little too early sometimes. And I get you on that. On this one, I think, though, you do have a pretty strong take there, especially Coach Lindsay himself was asked directly, too, about whether Saturday will be the line of demarcation. And he did the very famous, I'll defer to the head coach kind of answer, something along the lines of, you have to ask coach that. They're not even sure if they're going to be live yet. From what I could tell yet for full contact on Saturday. I'm doubtful of that. But, I'll put it this way. We've actually seen that situation you've talked about panning out in the past when if you remember Brandon Wimbush and Dylan Gabriel, who
same thing.
Yeah, who I said in the spring game would be starting very soon. I didn't know it was going to be that soon. But between that and
I remember after the FAMU game, a lot of people felt like maybe Gabriel should be the guy, right? Remember that? We were like, and then next thing you know, FAU
then
game,
starting at
Gabriel
FAU,
gets the ball.
I was one of those guys screaming that very thing, Elo, and I'll tell you what, it's very interesting how the injury of a player, in this case DJ Mack, can alter the course of a team's history.
Well, the tricky thing about the practice, neither Plumlee or Keene can run, at least in the first scrimmage. That's what Gus said, that they're pretty much stationary, which obviously is an advantage to Keene over Plumlee. Plumlee, for him to be effective, it's going to be with his legs and his arm. He's not.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's the nature of like the practices that they're running, right? Like if a defender gets within 2 yards of him, they play dead. So
correct, but there's that element there, and Gus said afterwards. I think somebody asked him in the presser, hey, what stood out about Mikey Keene from last year to this year? And he basically said, well, yeah, he knows the system. He knows how to read and everything. I'm like, well, isn't he supposed to know that already? Like, that makes sense. But it wasn't like, whoa, this guy's a completely different guy. So I'm not sure that this race is going to end this weekend. I could be proven wrong. And even if he does he's going to name a guy at some point.
Sure.
I don't think this race ends until after South Carolina State or Louisville.
But let me reiterate this, and I'm taking your role again, Elo, as that voice of reason that has to pop out every now and then.
Well, you should.
The only thing that we know for a fact, gentlemen, is that he's going to evoke a 2-quarterback system, as he did with Joey Gatewood, and say, listen, Jeff and I have had our philosophical debates about who should start for this football team. All we know for a fact is at the very least, John Rhys Plumlee is a much more talented Joey Gatewood, and I think you'll see a lot more changing of pace, certainly dependent on the opponent.
You know what I think would be this is going to be my little shot in the dark prediction, because I don't know if this would happen early in the season, but I think that this could happen at some point. We know that Plumlee has experience as a wide receiver.
No.
I'm going to say trick. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Trick play, Philly special style, Mikey Keene to John Rhys Plumlee.
Yeah, that writes itself.
I mean, yeah, but you can't run that every play, though. I mean,
no, you can't. You can't run that every play. I just think what I'm trying to kind of highlight with this is the fun possibilities that having both of these quarterbacks has in store for this UCF team. And I mean, even when you factor in Thomas Castellanos, I mean, if 2019 taught us anything, I mean, we didn't really think about Dylan Gabriel a lot until he really burst onto the scene in the beginning of that 2019 season. And it's looking like that we're going to get that again, in a sense that it's going to be who really, I think, really shows out in that South Carolina State game, that first game. It's like South Carolina State is the 2019 FAMU game, where the quarterback that might have the most positive momentum going is going to be the one that gets the starting job.
So you're saying like it's basically like an NFL preseason game in that respect. Like they both get reps with the ones and, against live action and see what happens.
I mean, South Carolina State, it's a scrimmage. It's a third scrimmage. It is what it is.
I think,
but I don't think you're going
to throws more than 5 passes in the game at some point.
Right. My only objection to Plumlee playing whiteout, I actually think our receiving core is pretty deep. I mean, that's Kyle. You've been there. They've been praising the wide receivers. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he could. Listen, he's really good. He's an amazing football player. I don't know if he can crack the depth chart at wide receiver.
A lot of times quarterbacks are put at wide receiver because they are a better application of talent. There have been NFL examples of that.
Eric Crouch, remember him?
For example, we can name a couple too. What was it? Matt Jones.
Matt Jones, yeah.
Before his off the field stuff, and I could go on and on.
Cordell Stewart before he went back to quarterback. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, right. Terrell Pryor, etc. But the punchline I'll hit with this is with Plumlee. To your point, Bryson, he could play wide receiver at other institutions, or he could just take all of that as somebody who's played for a quarterback converted to wide receiver. It's a very unique experience. That and do things that will throw off game plans in the backfield and do that with much more skill. But of course, trick plays are on the table. I'll see that and raise you this, Bryson Turner, going next level. You're old enough to know who Reggie Bush is, I hope. But there was so much hype around him that he was practically a rookie of the year candidate just because of fakes. He might have only had a handful of touches on the ball. They were going to pretend they're going to do what you think they're going to do with Bush and then completely fool you by just playing normal football. John Rice Plumlee might have that very same effect.
My concern with that part, though, is the fact that, if you do that when JRP's on the field, all 11 guys on the defense are going to be looking at him. You're not going to be able to. Yeah, I mean, fair, but you better have something good in store. So practice continues apace. The scrimmage is on Saturday. I believe not open to the public. It's more data for the coaches to try and ingest in the next 3 weeks before the opener against South Carolina State. Zooming out regarding the future of college football in general, UCF in particular, we've got some more movement on the conference front. John Hourand of Sports Business Journal was the first to report this, and multiple outlets are now reporting that the Big Ten Conference is nearing a media rights agreement with Fox, CBS, and NBC. They are going. They're going NFL style, man. They're going whole hog. They're taking they're also taking their product off of the Disney platform, ESPN, ABC, for the first time in 40 years. They were one of the first ones to actually televise, early Big Ten football and the early parts of cable. But now they're going with Fox, CBS, NBC. Looks like they're going to have the noon games on Fox. CBS, NBC will kind of split a 3:30, 7 o'clock thing. So now, what the hell does this have to do with UCF? Well, notice who's not in that little group there is ESPN and ABC. Now, granted that the ESPN family does still have the ACC. They do still have the Pac-12, such as it is. They still have, of course, the SEC, which is their crown jewel, at least as of right now. But Eric Lopez, a lot of inventory just opened up on the ESPN family of networks with which to put the Big 12 and consequently UCF. So what does this mean for the Big 12?
Well, I think it increases the likelihood that they will end up in some partnership with ESPN/ABC. By the way, Kyle, somebody in this podcast has been saying for a while that these conferences, college football is going more the NFL model. Who brought that up? I don't know. That was me. Thank you very much.
To lean into it. Listen, just because you have good hair, just like I do, doesn't mean.
Amen to that, brother.
This is a big risk, I think, going with all three of these networks. Don't you think?
For football, no. For the other sports, yes. It depends who you are. If you're Ohio State or Michigan, no, because Ohio State and Michigan can draw on if they were on C-SPAN. So
I would argue USC too.
USC might actually want to win a few games, be relevant again at some point.
There's a reason they got pulled into this league. So
no, but feel free to win. Feel free to win something relevant in the last. Matt Leinart and Pete Carroll was a million years ago. Pete Carroll's won a Super Bowl since the USC was relevant. But I think Ohio State, the Michigans of the world, I think it's a great move for them. They're going to be fine. I think, look, you have to take the TV deal. I think it's good for college football fans, especially casual fans, right, Kyle? A general fan's going to be on a Saturday night. Hey, I could get football on ABC, football on NBC primetime. There's probably going to be some baseball postseason stuff going on. It's good sports television. So that's good. And it's overall good for the Big Ten from an exposure standpoint. I think this will hurt more the middle tier, bottom Big Ten teams that are relevant, the Illinois, the Northwesterns. I don't think, because ESPN will never mention them ever again, and nor should they. Right. So, which is a good thing. So I think the good news
be
for
on
the
CBS Sports Network.
I don't think they will.
USA.
Oh no, I have the article up right now.
Yeah, they're not going to be on cable. They're not going to be cable. This is right. Bryson, read this article. They're going to be strictly CBS NBC split with some Peacock exclusive.
And I'm also seeing that FS1 and Big Ten Network.
Correct. That'll be your cable home for the Big Ten, so they can draw those 20 people that watch the games. So. That's what, to me, the big thing for the Big 12 is there's more inventory available towards ESPN for football and men's basketball. That's the thing that has been underreported because people like Andy Staples is too lazy to cover more than one college sport. I like Andy Staples, but feel free to cover other sports. College basketball is the big story here that nobody's talked about. What is one of the marquee ESPN basketball events, Jeffrey, as a college basketball fan, that happens every December?
Oh, your Big Ten ACC
Challenge.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to go bye-bye now. That's a big loss for ESPN, as well as some of the Big Ten basketball games that they carry. And that's going to benefit the Big 12, which is the number one conference in college basketball. I keep saying that. ESPN now cannot afford, from an inventory standpoint. This is about inventory. People can say, well, why does college basketball doesn't matter? It doesn't draw the football. No, it's about content on your channels and on your streams. Basketball fills out multiple nights. Now, if you're ESPN, you have to keep the Big 12 basketball, because if you don't, you're in trouble by losing the Big 10 and the Big 12. So that's why it's good news for the Big 12, but don't take my word for it. Take it somebody that actually knows what they're talking about. John Oran, here's what he said on his podcast, Marchand and Oran, about the Big 12 and why he believes they are the big winners from all this.
Brett Yormark, who is the new commissioner of the Big 12, and the Big 12 is sitting pretty. The Pac-12 is coming out with its rights first. The Big 12 is going to come right after it. But by all accounts, the Fox still wants the Big 12. ESPN wants the Big 12. Look, ESPN leaving the Big 10 or the Big 10 leaving ESPN, however you want to spin it, depending on who you're talking to, they're not leaving college football. They have deals going well into the 2030s with the SEC, with the ACC. They have relationships with the Pac-12, with the Big 12. College football is part of their DNA. College sports is. They're going to be aggressive in trying to keep the Big 12 and the Pac-12. I'm giving Brett Yormark my who's up.
That was John Oran from the Marchand and Oran podcast. That's Brian Murphy's favorite podcast, by the way. Shout out to Murph. But I do think this is good news for the Big 12. I know some fans are saying, I wish I was on NBC or CBS and have my own deal. No, you don't. because you would be lost you would just be like, nobody would even remember. Hey, anybody remember when the Mountain West people used to talk about them? Neither do I. So
last time they were talked about, they were on ESPN.
Correct. And so I think most schools in the Big Ten, like Michigan, Ohio State, USC, if they ever become relevant again, those won't be affected. I don't believe, by the way, people are saying, well, ESPN's not going to game day, ain't going to go to a Big Ten. No, they're going to still go. They went to Ohio State last year when they were playing Oregon and it was a Fox game. So I think this will benefit the Big 12. I think this will really help them land a deal. I still think Fox could still also be in the mix for the Big 12. I would not be shocked if the Big 12 deal is very similar to what they have now, except they probably have to take a few $1 million pay cut. And now when I'm saying that, I'm saying about the current members, not the UCFs. Like I've seen some of the Big 12 people thinking they could get 45, 50 million. It ain't happening, brother. But you might get 35, which for a, UCF parade. Thank you. We'll take it. Some other schools in the Big 12, not so much.
Five-fold increase over what UCF's getting in the American.
But that's
and
good.
Cincinnati
I think that's
and Houston, I should mention.
Yeah, but that's very important. I think it's good to stay on the ESPN, even if the football is not the number one priority for ESPN. Let's say Fox could end up with the first, rights to the games, and ESPN says, fine, we'll just get the second pick as the second best Big 12 game. We just want the basketball, we want the Olympic sports, etc. Because as I'll get into later in the show, I think this is a bad deal for the Big 10 Olympic sports. Even though they're going to get more money, the Big 10 never spends money on the Olympic sports like the SEC does. And I don't think we'll ever see a Big 10 volleyball will probably never be seen again until the NCAA tournament.
I actually really like what you mentioned there with Fox and the Big 12, because Aaron's article made a point to mention that Fox Sports will carry the A package of games in the noon Saturday window. So what's that leave open for Fox? The 3:30 window,
Correct.
Which is for a Big 12 game.
And they would rather have a Big 12 game than a Mountain West game. That's their options right now.
Now, if you're the Big 12, when does that media deal negotiation window open? It opens. Is it
probably after the end
with the Pac-12, or is it?
No, a year. They're about a year apart. They're about a year. So the Pac-12 gets to go. Well, Pac-12 kind of rushed it quickly, and I actually don't think if people are making a big deal out of that. The Pac-12, the only thing they have going for them is they could play games at 10:30 at night or later. That's really all they have going for them. And that ESPN could probably get it for a few bucks and then kind of control it. Who's going to pick up the tab for the Pac-12 network? That'll be interesting.
If anyone picks it up, and Mike, there were reports that there's a skeleton staff there now.
Right,
and
but I do think it's not
looking good.
It's not looking good, but I do think they're with this deal, and looks like Notre Dame with the NBC version of this. Kyle, it's amazing. Notre Dame, man, they always find a way to make sure nobody tells them what to do.
Jack Swarbrick was pretty happy with how that all worked out.
Because they don't have to join the Big Ten at all. They could be independent. And if that's the case, I'm not sure the Big Ten is going to expand right away. And that's not good news if you're Oregon or Washington. So they're going to have some interesting decisions over the next year if any of that happens. Like, I could see Notre Dame maybe leaving the ACC for Olympic sports, but not necessarily join full tilt.
The Big 12, by the way, I should clarify, according to the Seattle Times, is expected to begin media rights negotiations in the summer of 2024.
Right.
So we still have a ways to go.
Wink.
Ways to go.
Before... Yeah, it's kind of like when, we negotiate with Kyle, at a certain date, but, wink.
Well, hey, look who's going to be in there, 1 year in.
Hey,
we're going to be in there.
And hey, listen, just like the point that Jeff makes, Elo, listen, I still ended up doing bowl games in the Super Bowl in Canton nonetheless, but I digress. The flashlight is this. There's a lot of stuff you talked about there, but clarify me, and I think this is a point we want made for the people at home to kind of understand this with the impact on the Olympic sports. My first instinct was, what do you mean it's a bad deal? They have the opportunity to be on major networks that aren't on cable, these Olympic sports. Well, here's the thing. You're not necessarily going to see all of those, right? I think the issue is that because ESPN requires 24-hour-a-day inventory, as Jeff puts it.
Yep.
They're going to be more guaranteed to air the games that of the sports that need exposure and deserve exposure. Listen, for all the playful banter between Eric and I over women's basketball and softball, they're both excellent products that need more exposure. More people need to know that you're going to have a good time watching them. Well, I mean, is that the issue? Do I have it right?
Yeah, no, that's accurate. I mean, even Front Office Sports is reporting that ESPN saying they're going to turn their attentions to more women's sports and trying to lock up all the NCAA, the college football playoff, and the NCAA championships, which people forget. That contract that ESPN currently pays $34 million for 29 NCAA Olympic sports championship tournaments.
$34 million per year or total?
That's it. They got a bundle. It was an incredible deal. That ain't gonna happen in this new deal.
Is it per year?
Yes, per year, because what the NCAA did is they sold
$1 million and change per championship.
Correct, which was it's undervalued. Because what they did is they sold all the sports together. I don't think that's going to happen in the next TV deal. That deal expires after the 2024 season. And I think women's basketball, which they've already done the estimates, they think women's basketball could generate $80 to $100 million per deal with the revenue they bring for the tournament. Wow. Softball is on fire on that. It'll be interesting to see if those sports separate themselves. I've heard softball, baseball, women's hoops could separate themselves and get their own deal and not share it with golf, tennis, all the other sports. The reason this is a potentially bad deal for the Big Ten Olympic sports is, Jeff knows this, what is the marquee Olympic sport in the Big Ten? Volleyball. It's volleyball.
Yeah. It's volleyball.
Volleyball is the number 3 most watched sport on the Big Ten network, behind only men's basketball and football, obviously number 1. Volleyball. Jeff can read off the names, how many teams they have ranked in the top 25. This is a big blow for them because they're not going to be available to ESPN family of networks now, moving on. And some people think that is going to cost volleyball now.
Do we know that for sure, though? Like,
yes.
Does this deal includes Tier 3?
Yes. As of right now, unless something changes, and again, it is reported, unless there's a late phone call, you will not see a Big Ten team on ESPN unless they are on the road playing at an SEC school or ACC school or, a school that is, the American, that ESPN owns, basically.
Road non-conference, yeah.
Correct. That's it. Everything else will probably be on those channels, and I think what's going to happen to the Big Ten Olympic sports is I think they're going to be on Big Ten Network pretty much exclusively. Maybe Peacock, which is a big difference than being on ESPN Plus, SEC Network, ACC Network, ESPNU, ESPN2. That's where a lot of these Olympic sports live when you're on ESPN family of networks, whereas if you're not, you're probably going to be on like BTN. So that's why I mentioned, Kyle, I think it's a bad deal for the Big Ten Olympic sports, even though they will make more money, but they don't distribute the money in the Big Ten like they do in the SEC, where all the sports actually get that money.
More money less.
Right. Last word on this, and Eric, I want to know your take on this real quick. And I had some discussions with some folks on Twitter about this too. I still think that the brand power of ESPN is still underrated because consider the normal casual college sports fan, right? They want to see if they're sitting at home and they just want to flip on a game, what's the first place they go? They go to ESPN.
Typically.
All right.
Yeah.
And see what's on the ESPN networks. With the Big Ten going away from this, it seems to me that they're really leaning into their product as being appointment viewing, which kudos to them for thinking about that. God bless you. If you want to bet on yourself, bet on yourself. But I think that this is a major. It's really going to. I think this could hurt them in the long run in terms of the exposure of their schools to the casual fan. Their overall portfolio schools, because you're not going to see, oh, wow, Illinois Northwestern, they're going to overtime. You're going to have to look all over the place to find that, whereas you could probably easily find it on the ESPN2 if it was there. So, and in steps quite possibly, if things work out the way, I think some of us are hoping, the Big 12, right? All of a sudden, the Big 12 becomes that sort of organic magnet for casual viewership, right?
I will say, in the Big Ten's defense, they have tremendous alumni, and so they will find they will draw. It's different than the Big 12 I think ESPN helps programs like UCF. UCF, think of what they gained from hosting College Game Day in 2018. Yeah. Think about, nobody would have talked about UCF if they were on FS1. The South Florida game against 2017 on Black Friday would not have been the same coverage if they were on FS1 or CBS Sports Network. That's the big difference. The one thing I will say, and I think what the Big Ten's gambling on is, and I do agree to some extent, a big part apparently from the reports are, the Big Ten did not want any of their sports on ESPN Plus. ESPN did. And then so what they did is they told ESPN, fine, we'll give you the number 2 games. You're going to have to pay $380 million, but you're only going to get 13 games a year versus 27, what you get now. That's and I think the Big Ten, even there's people believe that the Big Ten feels ESPN's SEC bias and they just don't want to, whatever. Because Fox is so neutral.
ESPN isn't SEC bias. ESPN is money bias.
Well,
that's what they want.
In everyone's defense, there, watching Booger McFarland butcher a broadcast on a regular basis, I can see why you see some SEC bias.
But I think the Big Ten will draw because the alumni is big. It's big. Like Michigan's and the Ohio States, they are bulletproof. They could draw whatever channel they're on. You can put them on BN Sport. They'll draw because they have a great alumni and following. But
and those alumni are in major, and I know this, maybe this isn't as much, but they're primarily located in major TV markets. You got a lot of Big 12 alumni in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. You got a lot of Big 12 alumni that live in Chicago, obviously. A lot, and now with USC and UCLA, you're going to have a lot more in Los Angeles. And if the rumor comes true that they might be sneaking around with, rubbing elbows with Stanford and Cal, guess what that brings in? San Francisco, Oakland, the Northern California market.
Yeah, although I think that's overrated because nobody in that market cares about those college teams. They care about the team that Kyle's wearing the hat of.
But you just said that it's the alumni who do care.
Except Stanford doesn't have fans. That's the problem. They don't draw. Remember when UCF played there? It was an empty stadium. That's the most apathetic fan base. Them and Cal are the most apathetic college sports fans in the entire country.
There's another point to be added here, but I want to see if Bryson's caught onto it. I've seen him like he's ready to go to say something. I want to hear what it is because if he nails it and takes care of business like he did on my behalf on Tuesday at the press conferences, I want to be able to give him credit for it. Take a shot, Bryson.
Well, pressure much. Because as we were talking about this, and Eric mentions how this benefits the Ohio States and the Michigans because they can draw anywhere. There was one interesting thing that came to mind that made me think about this, and I was thinking, wait a minute, this feels like SEC on CBS sort of scenario. It kind of a comparison, but the difference between the SEC on CBS game and now is that this is wholesale. This is completely wholesale because SEC may have gotten one game on CBS, but they had the rest of their content on ESPN and that their family of networks where they can get exposed. Sure, the biggest games can get like Ohio State, Michigan State, those sort of games, Penn State, Ohio State will get big numbers like how the Iron Bowl always gets big numbers, but it's only going to benefit maybe the top 1, 2, top 5.
The top half, right.
That's exactly. That always draws anyway. And then leaves the rest of them and the Olympic sports in the dark because they don't have the exposure of
and basketball. And I think men's basketball is going to take a hit a little bit from the Big Ten standpoint because I think you're going to see a lot. The SEC and the Big 12 will benefit from that extra exposure they'll get among other conferences. No, that's a good point. I agree.
You're close though, Bryson. That's not where exactly I'm going, but it's still a good point.
Wow.
Here's the thing that I think Jeff in his worship to the empire. No, hey, listen, Disney bought them. They can officially use the Imperial March. I get it. But I know I've made that pun before. I still love it. But here's the thing you gentlemen are forgetting about. Yes, it's a dad joke. I know, Jeff. Here's the thing you guys are forgetting about. And the conversation we regularly have on this show is about the cord cutting aspect. Gentlemen, I know people who have ESPN and endure the Imperial March the way that they do simply to catch their team. Now, Ohio State is betting that cord cutters and I don't know the age of their alumni base necessarily, but I'm willing to say, let's just say it's significantly more old than UCF's alumni base. Thus, typically statistically more technologically inclined to deal with.
Let's just say it. Their alumni base is old. Just say.
I mean, you guys are being really. You guys are being mean to like Drew's family and everything. I mean, come on now. He's
no, just Drew. But anyway,
I would agree.
No, that's a great point, Kyle, though. It's a great point. And that's one of the things I want to see when this deal is finally announced and we can move on with our lives, because I feel like we've talked about this Big Ten deal for years. Where is the streaming going? Is Peacock, for example, going to pick up other Big Ten sports? Or are people still going to have to overpay to go to BTN Plus? That's a great question for the other sports, because you're right. And Bryson makes a great point. Yes, you're going to draw on Fox. You're going to draw on CBS. You're going to draw the NBC games. They're going to draw because we like football and television, and live sports right now is the most dominant property in live television, because television, nobody can write a script anymore originally. So, but the question that Bryson brings up is
taking a cast iron pan to the Screen Actors Guild and everybody.
No one is safe tonight, Jeff Sharon. Let me tell you.
But Bryson makes a great point. Yeah, Michigan's going to draw. Ohio State's going to draw. Penn State, whatever, USC. Where is that Northwestern Illinois game going to be on? Is that going to be on Peacock exclusive? Like, who's going to tune into that? It's a good question.
Illinois fans.
Listen, let's not repulse our now.
Rutgers and Maryland's a Big Ten game.
Don't repulse Isaiah Bowser. He is a former Northwestern guy. Let's not go crazy. No.
I gotta watch my boy Scotty Frost, man. Come on, Nebraska. Where am I gonna see him? I mean, I have to worry about that after this year.
I will say, Kyle, the second thing on my mind was the age demographic, because let's think about it, because one of the reasons that the NFL is so big as it has is because it has all those deals with the big network.
Oh, and I think that's a good, and again, that's why I think good move for the Big Ten. Yes.
The Big Ten, if you talking about having that higher age demographic base, then having them on the big networks, three of the four, is absolutely perfect, because no matter where they go, because people that have watched those channels for decades are now going to see their favorite team, or their favorite team when they're good, on that list. I think that's going to be fun. Like, it's going to make the rich get richer, but I think the poor are going to get poorer.
I think that's
a good description. Yeah, they're betting on NBC and CBS to replace ESPN, and if they watch the NBC pregame on the Hall of Fame game, they're going to be they know what's coming, which is a pretty mediocre product coverage broadcast.
I'll put it this way, Jeff. I like your point about the habit forming, but the best way to form a new habit is to make it more convenient to get to, because humans are lazy, brother.
Amen to that.
If only NBC had a sports network. Oh wait, it did.
Oops.
Now it doesn't.
They did.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay, because all those Big Ten grads, all they do is just have their TVs locked on CNBC anyways. Anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back,
we're going to let Kyle go here. Are we let him go here? Is he going to get ready for his big Jaguar game?
Yeah, Kyle has to go because he has to get ready to watch his Jacksonville Jaguars again.
Preseason opener in person. All right, quick thought here, Kyle. We're gonna discuss the UCF Hall of Fame later in the show. Right. But we would be remiss. I want quick thoughts. Latavius Murray, Joe Burnett, both inducted. Your thoughts?
I mean, listen, both of those are an incredibly big deal. I mean, Joe Burnett, just on the fun factor alone of him watching a punt, like kind of spin there and guys watch, is he going to pick it up or not? I don't know. And then he picks it up and takes it to the house. And then the whole situation where he gets drafted, I believe it was to the Steelers, and then ended up playing for Minnesota as well.
Correct.
In that grouping there too. So, other than Asante Samuel or Dante Culpepper, as far as skill players go, one of the earlier in recent history to go, and just a fun memory in general of what he would do on special teams plays. Totally cool with him getting in. And Latavius Murray, just what he's done, I find it very interesting how personality-wise, at least, between his playing career at UCF and in the pros, just having that workhorse capacity and ability. Just when you think he's done, oh wait, he's not. Just such a long career. I really am surprised he lasted as long as he has, not because I think he's a bad player, but just the punishment he's taken over his seasons and yet somehow is still churning. Definitely love to see both of them in there. Fantastic additions to the Hall of Fame.
We're going to talk about them in segment number 3. But for now, Kyle has to go. The student of the game, the SOTG on Twitter. Kyle, thank you for your insight. We will be following you throughout the weekend through the scrimmage on Saturday. Any news that comes in, make sure, folks, you follow him, the SOTG, for the student of the game on Twitter. Thank you, Kyle.
Hey, honor, joy, and privilege. Until next time, class dismissed.
Stick around when we return. Tiffany Sahaydak, UCF women's soccer head coach, joins us to preview her team as they get ready for the 2022 season, our first Olympic sports preview of the fall of 2022. We'll be right back. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon with you, along with Bryson Turner. And oh my gosh, it's already here, Bryson. Can you believe it? It is time to start previewing, like, hardcore our fall sports. And we start with, as we do every year, with the sport that starts the earliest. In fact, they've already got one exhibition game underneath their belt, the UCF women's soccer team. And joining us, of course, U.S. women's national team legend and the head coach of your UCF Knights, Tiffany Sahaydak. Hey, Coach Tiff, how are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending time with us. We've got, I was just going to say, I think it was like the last couple of years we've had you on the show for our preview. And we're like, hey, let's talk about the team. And you're like, and it's like early August. And you're like, well, I feel like I'll know more in a week because we haven't even shown up yet. It's because you guys start so early.
We haven't even had one training.
I know. But you got that exhibition in against FAU, and you kind of do you feel like you starting to have a bead on the team that you're going to have for 2022?
Yeah, I think one advantage that we have, especially as a coaching staff, is that it's a veteran group. So of course, we have new players, which we can talk about. But the good thing, it's always nice as a coaching staff when it's a veteran group. And obviously, there's always teaching and reviewing and going over new things, or old things. But I love having a veteran group for sure.
Yeah, you return a lot of folks from last year on a team that, when we look back at what happened, it was just bad luck all over the place, injuries, because, you had the goalkeeper of the year, Caroline Delisle, you had the midfielder of the year, and you guys miss out on the postseason. I know how much that sticks in your craw, but it's like sometimes you roll the dice and it comes up snake eyes, right?
Yeah, soccer is a funny sport. It drives me nuts.
Cruel sometimes.
Yeah, it's very cruel, and I love it at the same time, but I know we had a good team last year, even though we didn't make it to the postseason. And we won some huge games, like in the beginning of this season. And, we lost some games in conference that we shouldn't have, for sure. But knowing that we have the ability to win some big time games with essentially the same roster, players coming back, that actually gives everybody confidence, because the players know that we won games, and they had a fantastic spring season. Knowing, I think knowing that majority of your team in the spring that you have, we think our preseason started in January, because we weren't waiting for a huge group to come in that weren't here yet, and we didn't lose a lot of players. So we actually started preseason in spring, which was nice.
Tell me about. Sorry, Bryson. I was going to say, I wanted to ask you about Caroline Delisle, because I know that Eric and Eric has joined us here in the podcast as well. I've talked in the past about how, goalkeeper at UCF is kind of like playing center field for the New York Yankees or quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Like you are, you're the straw that stirs the drink, and you got another great one in Caroline, don't you?
We really do. And we're really lucky we've had her. And, this is not even her last year. So she has another season, next year. So she's a leader. She's a captain. Obviously, she's very strong in her position. We didn't have her over the spring. She had a hip labrum tear, so she was getting that taken care of. It's not a major surgery, but obviously you're out for a while, and she didn't get in the spring games. But she's been rehabbing, and so far so good with everything coming back, and she looks strong and ready to go. And she split time with Liza Pistoria in our FAU exhibition, and they both looked great. So, but yes, Carol is a rock, and even coming back from injury, we're thrilled about her, and she's put in the work to be ready to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say last year, I really wanted to nominate Caroline DeLisle because we have the Banny Awards that we do after the end of every academic year. I wanted so badly to nominate Caroline DeLisle for Female Athlete of the Year, because even though the record might indicate otherwise, she was one of the players that really kept your team afloat last year. That I felt like because you guys were a really talented team. It just, unfortunately, things didn't really work out. And then, of course, everything else happened in UCF women's athletics. But another thing that succeeded was Kristen Scott on offense. She ended up getting double the number of goals that second place on the team, Ellie Marino, got. I saw that Mia Asenjo is joining the team. She was on the USLW league team this year. How important is it to get somebody like Mia? Because I heard from Daria that having her back was a very big deal for you guys. So how big is it to have her back alongside Kristen?
Yeah, so Mia is going to she's a red shirt freshman. So, it was a big blow when she called us her senior year this spring and said that she just torn her ACL. Because I projected that she was going to be a freshman that would come in and make a huge impact her freshman year for us. And so not having her was a big blow. But, that happens all the time, and we have to deal with it. And she is a competitor. And she's just like a crazy competitor. Like, she's a role model and just has it. It's just in her blood to compete always. And so she was so resilient, dealt with rehab, and has come back and used the whole summer to get games in with USL. And I love to see that she was, top 11, and what a honor. And it's all due to her resilience and her hard work and the way that she's training in preseason right now. She's like, she's so excited, and I'm so excited for her, and the team's excited about her. So she's going to be a huge, just a huge impact for us. Like, she's going to be a big piece of our success for sure.
It was one thing I noticed is on the men's side, they have that kind of 1-2 punch in the forwards with Luca Dorado and Gino Vivi. Do you think that Kristen Scott and Mia can kind of have a similar sort of role?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I think we have more depth than we've ever had. So I do think Kristen and Mia are going to have a major impact and together and combine. And but hopefully we'll have some others too that will step up and help out as well.
Now, Coach, I want to ask you about your summer, because it's pretty wild summer you had. You were with Team USA, helping them win the CONCACAF up in Mexico, which was a huge tournament, a berth to the World Cup next year, and a trip, automatic bid to the Olympics in Paris in a couple of years. Talk about pressure. So I was following you and Coach Ball Malone, who was in Birmingham with Team USA. Describe that experience, and I'm wondering if you two even interacted with your respective responsibilities as assistant coaches for the U.S. national teams.
We didn't have time to interact. We both were encouraging each other, and it was like, hey, good job, go USA. Like, keep up the good work here and there with via text message. But but not a ton of communication, although she's a good friend of mine. But yeah, just an amazing opportunity that I was given, that I'll continue to have actually with the team. So I'll continue to be with the U.S. Women's National Team through the World Cup, actually, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, just go full circle from being a player for the U.S. team and then now being on the other side and being coach and just being part of the program and just the environment, just to see how far we've come to as a federation and the team and the resources and the parity within the women's game, just being in part of those games. And it's just, winning CONCACAF back in the day, what actually wasn't that hard. We would do it, and other teams in the world didn't have the same resources that US did. So, they'd have like a training session and then it'd be expected to play as a team and compete to qualify for World Cup. Now all these teams have still some ways to go, but they still are getting a lot more resources and are in training camp, and the players are playing professionally, around the world. So it's just a different time, and it's pretty cool to see the parity and the support that the women's game is getting now.
Is this something you always wanted to do? Well, is this something you always wanted to be a part of, being a coaching staff on Team USA? It just evolve, and then kind of explain how you balance that now with being the head. You're not the only coach to do this, but now you're balancing this with obviously running the program at UCF.
Yeah, it's not something that I actually had like on my to-do list. Like, that I'm trying to position myself here and get strategic so I could be here. Like that's never was on my mind. My mind is UCF, doing the best job that I can do at UCF. I've always been part of the federation as an assistant coach for the youth national team. So I've always had this role popping in, popping out during the spring with our U18s, U19s. But it was always just this side thing that filled my cup that I really loved doing. And out of the blue last December, I got a call from Kate Markgraf, who's the GM of the team. And she's like, hey, I'd love for you to come in and check out the senior team and meet the coaching staff. And I hadn't known them before, and just like threw me in there and see how it goes, see if you mesh with the staff and the players. And I've been going ever since. I feel like it's like how I was as a player, like getting thrown into the mix as a 16-year-old and then figuring out, okay, what am I doing right now? And then you just keep getting invited back. So that's kind of how it's been. But how do I balance it? I mean, I can only balance it if I have amazing support and an amazing staff. So thankfully my husband and I work together, and our conversations are ongoing all the time. We can have them at 11 p.m. and 5 in the morning because we live in the same house. So it's no problem. And we know each other so well that it doesn't matter. He or I like running the program in the moment, or if I missed a spring game. So it's no problem. And the team's aware and they're super supportive. So it is obviously hard doing both, but everyone's been so supportive and the whole staff is so good. And Terry Mahajar's been so supportive about dual role and having that dual capacity. And this is a short-term thing. It's not going to be forever. UCF's my priority, and it is. And so I'm not trying to do anything else, but I'm glad that Terry is giving me that opportunity where I can do both. And everyone's been so supportive of my new role. So, but again, it's short term. It's short term. It's not something I'm looking to do forever.
But it's still special. I mean, we know how much that that means to you, and it means to the sport in general too. My question for you on it is, as a coach, and you don't have to reveal too much of the nitty gritty, obviously, but what do you learn as a coach from working with the national team that you then apply, at UCF, and also vice versa? Because it's sometimes it's good to kind of, it's like your regular competition, right? You'll learn a little something different when you're working with a different set of people.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, there's so much growth that has happened in the past 6 months since I've been with them, since January. And I think, when you're being a head coach and then working with my husband, it's like we're in this little bubble and, we're bouncing ideas off of each other. But if you don't have anybody from the outside coming in and giving you new ideas, obviously we're trying to evolve all the time and reading and watching and going to other sessions of, professional teams. And so you're doing your professional development, but it's really cool to be in a new environment and being asked to do new tasks or think of something a new way. Like as a head coach, like I'm the one in charge. So no one's really telling me what to do, And so being an assistant coach in a different role on essentially the best team in the world and being asked to do tasks that are out of my comfort zone, like there's no way I'm not going to grow and be able to bring some of that information, but just like that excitement and a new sense of like, this is a new energy, coming back to the team. So, but I love like different ways of thinking and sharing information on how we can do things. And it's not just even tactics, it's even a way of organizing and new ways of organizing training sessions or a new way of organizing high performance and sports performance. Like you look at all of the ways we're helping our student athletes. And I think when you're on the best team in the world and you have all those resources, you're like, okay, we can supplement that and do that. It's just, you're taking little things and adding it to your own program. So it's a major benefit and advantage, I would say.
Coach, speaking about finding yourself in a new environment, you brought in 3 transfers to the team. One, you have Georgie Collins from Florida, Keelis Barton from Washington State, and then Anika Huta from your alma mater, North Carolina. So, can you talk about them and what they will bring to the team, especially with Georgia and Keelis both being defenders?
Yeah, Annika has been with us since January, so sometimes I forget she's actually new because we worked with her all spring. Because I've been talking a lot about Georgia and Keelis being new, but Annika, you're right, is new as well. But all 3 huge impact players. We talked about our defense and having Carol. And I think too, what's happened in the past is we haven't had a lot of depth in the back. And I think, we start off strong and then we start to lose a little bit of momentum because we're tired. I mean, 90-minute games, 2 games a week, going back to back. That's too much load on our players. And there's no way you can keep up that type of intensity and performance and even mentally, like being ready game in, game out. You need rotation. And so what we have now with Keelis and with Georgia, who are defenders, we can have a rotation in the back, which is the first time in a long time that we've been able to do that. So I'm really excited that we have 2 more starters that can play in the back for us. So essentially we have right now, I envision 6 starters on our team in the back. So I think that we're going to have a rotation back there, and Georgia and Keelis are top class Division I soccer players that you guys will get to see. And then Annika, again, is another player in the midfield that can be a starting midfielder. So I think you're going to see rotation in all 3 lines for us this year. In the past, you'll see a starting lineup and you kind of expect it, you know what to expect, you understand like who's going to sub on, and there's 3, 4, maybe 5 subs that you'll see. I think you're going to see different starting lineups this year.
Yeah, that sounds like that's definitely a good sign to pull some depth back there. It's funny because I was actually talking to Daria at the Mission Control Star Sign event that she was at recently, and she told me there that she thought that another defender, Matilda Kack, is in store for a really good season. So do you think that depth will be able to allow players like her to not get tired and be able to really show out a little more?
Yeah, for sure. Like when you're what if one center back plays 90 on Thursday and another center back plays 90 on Sunday? So it's like you're going to get the best of them all the time because they're not drowning by the end of the season, So I think we can stay fresher, longer, and they all know that they're like competing for the spots, but they also know that they're all good, and so there's confidence there. And the rotation is going to be because of our depth, not because there's a starter and a non-starter. And this is the first time that we've really been in this situation. So I'm really excited about that depth and the transfers that we've been able to get here in the past 6 months.
Coach, your schedule this year, again, you have some of the usual suspects. Every year we always talk about how tough the schedule is, but mixing it up a little bit this year. I mean, you got 3 SEC teams, including Florida, who's coming in the regular season opener on August the 18th in just 9 days already. Ole Miss is coming to town too. You also have Texas coming in, as well as 2 teams from, from the ACC, including a trip to your alma mater in Chapel Hill in North Carolina, which I know you're looking forward to. Tell us about the schedule, particularly in that non-conference slate, because that's where the meat and potatoes are, kind of when you get set up for that RPI as you look forward to the postseason, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why we do it. So it's like, I want to have a schedule where it's going to help us when postseason comes and the selection is happening. So, we got to be able to win some of those top games, which we did last year. Like coming out of conference, the way I projected it, we were better than I thought we were going to be, like in that situation. Like we overachieved in the out of conference. So we positioned ourselves really well out of conference going into conference. And then that's where conference, we actually underachieved in conference. But if we can position ourselves again, like we did last year, to get that part done, then in conference, you just got to win the games you're supposed to win. Obviously we have big goals and we want to win the championship, but, we've set ourselves up to be able to have a good RPI. And, in the end, if we didn't win the championship, then we should still be selected. So that's always the goal. And I love just playing the best in the country. Like, why not? Let's see where we are. And if we're not one of the best, then we'll know that right away. And we got to fix things. And then if we are at the top, then how can we maintain that? So I'm excited about some of these really big time games that we have coming up and see where we stand. And then it's confidence going into conference.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, I was going to say, and you think too, the American Conference itself has gotten better in women's soccer. I think overall, the floor of the league, I think, is higher, and there's a lot more teams that you're with right there in that upper tier, right? Like Memphis is back.
It was a 3-bid league last year. Could have been easily a 4 or 5-bid league, Coach.
Right.
Totally. Like the conference is very strong. It's going to continue to be strong, and obviously we want to go out with a bang. But it's a strong conference with, South Florida is always good, and Memphis is always good, and SMU is going to be good again. Cincinnati always gives us a hard time. Houston's gotten better, and they have another new coach who I have a lot of respect for. So I know they're going to be a good team again under Jaime Frias, and they just, Tulsa has a newer coach, and Temple has a new coach. Like, it's just the league overall is in a much better place. And yes, there isn't a game. It's soccer. Like, there's never an easy game, because it could be cruel. So you just have to be ready and take it game by game. And we respect everybody out there.
And with the Big 12 coming up too, in 2023, that's the other thing. I guess the American is coming up at, just the right time, because that's going to be another step up. What sort of thing are you right now, even with this season coming up, making your preparations for the conference transition and seeing what that's going to be like for your program? Or are you kind of like, not right now. I got to focus on what I've got right now.
Yeah, I think it's this balance, because I think in recruiting, we're looking into the future. So obviously in recruiting, we're thinking Big 12, and we recruit to say like we're going in the Big 12, and obviously, so looking in the future, yes. But then at the same time, right now in this season, no, I'm looking at the American. We have a job to do this year, and we want to go out with a bang. So I think it's more of like recruiting, future, our current team right now, this season, we're in the American, and we got to get things done.
And that's the other thing too. Like, we've talked about this with other coaches too. And I wanted to know your perspective from the women's soccer side, is how the move to the Big 12 really impacted your your recruiting in particular? Like, how did it change the kinds of players that you are now able to get in recruiting?
I think it's still evolving and it's changing. Like, I don't think it's like, boom, it's changed and there's this major, major difference. So I think it's going to continue to change, and I think it's going to continue to help. I think just being part of the Big 12 with a big brand like that and being able to say Power 5. I mean, I've missed out on recruits initially, and like the initial text, I'm looking at Power 5 coaches, Power 5 schools coach, like, we have a lot of respect for you, great program, but I'm looking for the Power 5, and you get that off the bat, and it could be very frustrating, So I'll be like, wait, we beat Power 5 schools. Like, wait, So to not have to hear that anymore is going to be very exciting. And so, it's a great move for us, and it's going to be very challenging for us. And I love to be able to use it for recruiting. Because I think the Power 5 and the brand of the Big 12 it means something to our prospects.
Scheduling. How does that affect your scheduling philosophy? I mean, you play a tough schedule every year, non-conference, et cetera. Now you're going to the Big 12. How does that affect your plan, your philosophy as far as non-conference scheduling? And of course, you're going to get asked. Every UCF coach is going to get asked this question. You just happen to be the first one.
Yeah.
What does this mean for USF? That matchup, could that still be played down the road? And even a matchup against Memphis, which has a longtime rival of UCF. How does the Big 12 change all that?
Yeah, I mean, I still want to obviously play a strong conference, and I still have to evaluate that a little bit on how to approach it. There's been some obviously thought and evaluation and analysis, but I do think that, there's still some more homework to do with that. But yeah, South Florida, I'm already in conversations with them to continue to play going, forward. Like, why wouldn't we do that? The location, the rivalry, it's still there. And I always think that we can get a good crowd for that game. And it's two good teams that play, well, and it's just competitive. Like, every player wants to play in a game like that. So, but yeah, so I do think for sure South Florida will continue that.
Coach, we've mentioned now, name drop Kristen Scott, Caroline Delisle, Daria Rajayu, as I mentioned earlier, midfielder of the year in conference. You have all of these talented players coming back. Mia Senho, of course, we mentioned as well. But who do you think that hasn't exactly gotten a lot of accolades, or that we've mentioned so far, that maybe is flying under the radar, that you think is in store for a big season this time around?
I think like a Dayana Martin's always like flying under the radar, and she quite never like gets reaches her potential, whether an injury ends up happening or she has a setback, but like she's due, like she scored in our exhibition match, and she scored some goals over the spring. So, I know, she's a player that I know can make things happen. So I'm hoping she really reaches that potential this fall. Anna Henderson had a really good spring. She's a transfer from Louisville. Had a great spring. I know Mal Olsen, she scores goals for us at times. So I know she's going to be fighting to get, playing time and starting. And so I think there's just be good competitive, healthy competitive, battles going on for, like I said, I think the starting team is like going to be rotating, because I think that we have more than 11 starters. But yeah, I hope, some of the players, like I said, Katie Bradley, I mean, she's a younger midfielder, but she's really like doing really well right now. Again, strong spring. So I don't know, there's a handful that can come out and make a big difference, because they're good footballers. And I love watching them play. Like this preseason has been great watching them connect and compete. And I'm excited for so many of them.
With the experience and the depth do you have on this team, do you expect more balance offensively, scoring wise? Do you expect it to be coming from 1 to 2? It's harder, but how do you see the offense goal scoring playing out if you had it your way this season, kind of how you envision it with the roster you've got?
I mean, I always prefer to be balanced and it not just coming from one person. I mean, I think it's easier, like when we play a team and it's like one person that scores all the goals, that's a little bit easier for us tactically to be able to handle that. So if you have 5 or 6 players on your team that are scoring goals, like, we're balanced, and that's harder to defend. So I hope there are a lot of goal scorers. Like I said, in the exhibition match, it was Anna Henderson and Deanna Martin that scored goals. Mia, assisted. And I mean, I just think there's so many different players that can have those opportunities or create those opportunities and make it happen. So definitely prefer the balance and having a lot of different goal scorers. Mention Ellie Moreno too. She's been a point leader on our team. She's been a little quiet this preseason so far, but I expect her to come out of her shell a little bit.
Who is your vocal leader on this team?
We have a few. Our captains are Kristen Scott. Obviously she's vocal. Daria Rajai, she's not like this super like dominant personality, but the team has a lot of respect for her. So she'll be vocal in certain ways with like teaching. And then you've got Caroline Delau, who's she's vocal. And then Matukak is not very vocal. She's pretty quiet for a center back too, but she's come out of her shell more. Mallory Olson is actually super vocal. We've got a handful veteran players, like I said. They're all comfortable, but what I love is that they all respect one another and anyone feels confident like speaking up. And that's how I want it to be. I want to have the type of culture where anyone can speak at any time, and they have a lot of respect for one another as long as they do the work, which they all are. So they all have the opportunity. Who's actually pretty vocal, even since her freshman year coming in as injured, is Mia Senyo. Like, she just has this personality. Like, she's a leader. Like, she was a leader as a freshman. Like I said, she hadn't even had the opportunity to like prove herself as a soccer player yet for the team. And she was already helping and encouraging. And she's going to be exciting. Yeah.
What's the ceiling for her? Because I've known you now for a decade. I don't remember you talking, even last year, talking about a freshman as highly as her and what her capabilities are in helping your team. What's the ceiling for her? What kind of player is she?
Yeah, the fact that she just came out of the gates and was, already made a splash after the summer, being in the top 11, the USLW. Like, I'm like, whoa. Like, I actually was not expecting that at all. Like I watched her this spring. She just wasn't quite there fitness-wise. She actually scored a goal against Miami in the spring off of corner kick. So it's like, I know she's going to make an impact, but she quite wasn't as mobile yet, as not as fit yet. So I didn't quite see her full potential yet. So I was actually like thrilled to see how well she did this summer. And I think now that just gave her like the confidence, and now you're seeing it in preseason, and she's up to speed. So I don't think that there's a ceiling for that woman. She's full package. I don't know if you've seen her, but she really is full package.
Well, we can't wait to see her. Yeah, can't wait to see her on the pitch. Can't wait to see everybody else out there. You guys have one more exhibition. It's your only home exhibition on Friday at 4:30, and it's against Miami. You mentioned you play them in the spring, so you get another crack at them in the exhibition schedule. And then the regular season starts on Thursday, August the 18th. That's 1 week from this Thursday, 6 p.m. against the Florida Gators. Starting out with the Gators right out the gate, Coach.
I love it. At home against the Gators, like August 18th, home opener. I mean, it's like the best way we could start our season. I love it. Super excited. Hopefully we can get a lot of like a lot of fans out there watching the match. I know. Well, it'll
be wild.
It should be fun. It should be a lot of fun. I know you're looking forward to getting another crack at your alma mater, the Tar Heels, because y'all had that game last year that got cut short due to the weather, right? So
we did. We had some weather issues last year.
Yeah.
A few matches, but I think I'm always excited to play UNC. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country, the dynasty. Love seeing my former coach. Like it just, Tim played there too. So it's for both of us, it's pretty cool. Actually, my daughter is going to come with us on that trip. She's a freshman in high school. She's not playing soccer right now, but it's that time where she has to start looking at other other campuses, universities. So I'm like, hey, come check this out. So she's gonna come on.
Oh, you're gonna give her the tour, aren't you? Oh man,
nostalgic. Although I'm trying to get her to go to UCF, so we'll see.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I know it's going to be fun. We can't wait to see you out there on the 18th. Best of luck in the exhibition. Best of luck throughout the season. Tiffany Roberts Sahaydak, TR Sahaydak on Twitter, and you're pretty active on there too. So, and we always love to see that, everything that you've been sharing
for the few
about
minutes
UCF.
that she's avable when she's not coaching either team.
Yeah, I know. When you're not on a plane somewhere, jetting around the country to doing to taking care of all your responsibilities. But we're looking forward to seeing you out there, and I can't believe we're already getting ready to start the season. This is going to be a fun one. Our last ride in the American before the Big 12. It's going to be fun.
I'm ready. I'm excited. Usually I'm like, I don't know. I'm ready to go. Like, let's go. It's veteran group. So I'm like, come on, we've been training since June. Let's go. I'm ready.
All right. We're ready to. Tiffany Roberts Sahaydak, head coach, UCF Women's Soccer. You can follow the Knights at UCF_W Soccer on Twitter as well. Thank you so much, Coach. We'll see you for the opener against Florida.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks to Coach Sahaydak, TR Sahaydak on Twitter. Once again, UCF_W Soccer on Twitter. Guys, I'm actually really excited for this year because, we know about how good Kristen Scott is. We know about Caroline Delisle. We know that this team, I think last year the injury problems that we saw were primarily because, and how quickly we forget about this, right? They played a spring season in summer in 2021, because the fall 2020 season got pushed back because of COVID, right? And so they went full blast spring 21, full blast fall 21. And obviously they weren't the only team that had to deal with that, right? But that's why I think injuries were a big part of that. So seeing them come back this year, I think with a full normal offseason, this is the first time since then that they will have been, that they're back on a normal schedule.
Well, the big thing too, as you mentioned, it's the first time I've seen her mention she has depth and experience. I think the last few years she's kind of acknowledged last year she didn't have the depth. Some years she just hasn't had the experience. She's got the combination of this with only the one departure. You had some pieces, you heard her how she talked about the young freshman there, Mia Asejo.
Yeah.
She's glowingly talked about a lot of players. I believe we've had her now. We've had her on every year since Banneret started.
Yeah.
If you include the years before that, I don't remember her talking about a freshman this glowingly like Mia Asejo, who, remember, even last year, Jeff, when we interviewed, remember how she mentioned she was out for the year? And you could tell in her tone, oh, that hurt. And so this.
Well, now we know why, because she scored 11 goals in 12 matches.
Well, and that's big because I think outside of Kristen Scott, they struggled offensively, and I know she's hoping for balance. Mia and Sejo could help that process with them with more experience on the back line to help Caroline Delisle. That could be the big difference maker. And look, they were in position to make the NCAA tournament. They had the resume. The problem is, as she mentioned, in conference, it just slipped away.
Yeah.
And, we'll see what happens this year. But you look at that schedule. Let me highlight this. This is insane. September 4th, host Ole Miss, NCAA tournament team. At North Carolina, September 11th. It's North Carolina.
By the way, let's not forget that they opened the season with Florida, but Florida had a bad year last year.
They got a first-year coach. Yeah. And then they go to LSU. LSU has a great high-octane offense there. But this is the stretch consecutively. Ole Miss at home, tournament team. At North Carolina, tournament team. Open conference at Memphis. And what could be the final time that those two rivals play, NCAA tournament team. They're the favorites in the American. At Texas. Future Big 12 game finishing to home and home. UCF, remember, trashed Texas last year in the opener. So,
that's a brutal 4-match stretch. And
the
only one at home is against Ole Miss.
Yeah, that is wild. I think we're going to know where that team stands after that point. That is incredible stretch.
By the way, after that, you talked about how tough that 4-match stretch is. Well, guess what? 11 days off, but they still have to play Cincinnati at home after that. Cincinnati beat them 3-1 in the season finale last year.
I would argue cost them an NCAA at large bid with that.
Probably did.
Yeah.
And then they got to go October 6th up to Temple in Philly. It's going to start to get chilly up there. And then before they come back home 3 days later for SMU. Like, this is, man, she was right. And I didn't get the chance, doggone it, I didn't get the chance to ask her about the 21st century model, which we've talked with Scott Calabrese about. And I think that, the men are going to, if and when that does happen, it's going to happen with the men first, where soccer becomes a 2-semester sport. But did you catch Coach Tiff kind of talking about how, it's really not good for the players to play these 2 games in 1 week kind of schedule? And I regret that we didn't get the chance to ask her about that. Because I think in the past we've kind of mentioned it to her, and it didn't feel like she was on board, but that's the first time I've heard her say that.
Well, I think you make a great point. They basically played 2 seasons in 1 last calendar year, so that's probably where you noticed that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not convinced that any of that's going to pass anytime soon in either soccer. We'll see when we have Coach Calabrese. I just don't think the universities want to spend it for 2 semesters. But we'll see. But, she's focused about right now. I mean, she's busy enough. I mean, pretty cool scoop. She's going to be coaching the U.S., obviously the assistant. They won the tournament in Mexico. She's going to coach through the World Cup. That the last UCF player to be part of Team USA, the U.S. national team in a World Cup, I believe, was Michelle Akers. Now, we've had others. Alina Reyes, obviously, with Brazil and others. So I don't want to make it sound like it's, but
not with the USA.
Correct.
Not with Team USA.
So I think that's been an underreported coverage of that. I'm glad we got that scoop. I had no idea. I knew she was with the U.S. assistant on the national team, but I didn't know she would go through the World Cup. So that's pretty awesome, and the way they're balancing that out.
Last bit, Bryson, go ahead.
Yeah, I like what you had to say with the 21st century model, because last season with the double up in 2021 almost felt like a nice little proof of concept for how the 21st century model could work. And considering the results of women's soccer season and how they kind of flamed out at the end, I mean, you have to wonder if maybe that result kind of soured the concept for Coach Tiff a little bit, because when you have a year-long soccer, that's what ended up happening. Now, the good news is when it comes to this season, is she now has that depth, so that way she doesn't have to run her players ragged like she does. I mean, she returns some great core players, and now she's finally bringing in some people that can back them up. So I'm excited to see what this team has in store for us.
Well, as far as I know, from the models that I've seen, is that you wouldn't have a spring followed by a fall where the fall is that intense, right? You would have much fewer matches in the fall than what we saw after the spring of 2021. So I kind of liked how we had the College Cup in the spring. I think it wasn't swarmed over by the beginning of basketball and the end of football.
Well, we talked about television with the Big Ten deal in the first segment of the show. The NCAA, as we mentioned earlier, NCAA championships deal with ESPN runs out after 2024. So to me, if any of that is going to pass, I would think it's starting with the 2025 season with whoever the TV partners will be. I personally believe that the College Cup would benefit from being in the spring. I think they have a horrible TV slate right now. And I think volleyball and soccer are probably both linked into that. Kerry Sheffield, the Wisconsin head coach, has been very outspoken, concerned about the lack of volleyball on linear television. And I don't think this Big Ten TV deal is going to help that. So I think you're right. I think soccer would benefit from the spring. But again, there's a lot of logistics. We'll see what happens when we talk to Coach Calabrese, because I do agree with you. The men are going to do it first if it happens before the women do it. Because that's where the buzz has been more on the men's side than on the women's side. But, we'll see. We'll see how that plays itself out with the TV, when all that settles.
All right. Well, again, thanks to Coach Tiff, and we will see UCF open their season, the regular season, against the Florida Gators on August 18th. That's a Thursday. They are the first UCF team to kick off their regular season. We come back. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about in our little grab bag at the end, including another UCF golfer taking home some hardware and a few other items to clean up as we get ready for, well, by this time next week it'll be mid-August. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner with you, joined by Andrew Gluchov here for our third segment. The Leroy Jenkins of UCF Twitter Mafia blasting through the door here all by himself. Big day in UCF history as the Hall of Fame class of 2022 has been announced. 2 football players, of course, we mentioned earlier with Kyle Nash, Joe Burnett and Latavius Murray are being inducted, along with one player that you're familiar with, Eric Lopez, Mackenzie Addis from UCF softball, head coach Linda Gooch of the UCF Spirit team, and Christina Sarf from rowing as well, joining the team. Or joining the UCF Hall of Fame. So 5 worthy nominees. Eric, I'll start with you. You had have had at least some insight into what was going on. Any surprises? Any things that about how this all how this class came together?
Well, I like the fact, first of all, that it's a majority female class in the year of Title IX. I think that's a good thing. So I was kind of worried a little bit what direction they might go with that. But I thought they did pretty good. I was surprised, for example, no Kirk Spirall. I thought with him retiring from Iowa, that could have been an interesting choice, but
probably wait a year.
Maybe a year or two, a couple years. The big thing that surprised me is Linda Gooch getting in, because about a year ago, I was told that they don't put in active coaches, that they wait till they retire. Well, Linda Gooch is still active. And I wonder your thoughts on this, guys. I want your opinion on this one, like starting with you, Drew, because I remember, Drew, we spoke about this in the group chat, because you first thought, hey, I think Linda Gooch should be in, but then I said, no, she's active. And you're like, yeah, you're right. But no, they put it. Do you have a problem with a coach that is still active, especially, let's say, coaching at UCF, that is still active coaching, being eligible to get into the Hall of Fame that quick? I'm not bothered by it, but I am surprised that they go that route, that you put somebody in before their career is over.
Well, it's not so much I'm bothered by Linda Gooch getting in, because she's more than deserving.
Absolutely.
It's more the fact there's a lack of consistency.
Yeah.
There's no set, you have to be out of school for this amount of time. You have to be out of, coaching at UCF for this amount of time, whatever. I think that's the big thing, is there's a lack of consistency in the process. And I think that needs to be a little more ironed out. And I know why they keep it a little big, because they want to bring in these exceptions to the rule, and they want to open the door for that. So personally, I would like to see something a little more concrete.
You're not the first that brought that up, but I think you make some valid points on that. Like the other change they made last year, it used to be you had to be 10 years to get into the Hall of Fame. They changed that last year to 7. That's why Mackenzie Addis gets in so fast, because she's 7 years from graduating, which is really deserved. She's one of the 4 best pitchers of all time at UCF. You could make an argument she's the best ever, depending on what what criteria is for that Mount Rushmore conversation of UCF softball. Linda Gooch is a 3-time national champion. I have no issues with her getting in. I just, to your point, Drew, are we going to be consistent now with active coaches? And that kind of, that brings kind of a little bit of a gray area, because how do you determine an active coach is Hall of Fame worthy? What is the criteria? We don't really know that.
I have a way. Have they won a national championship?
Right. Well, then Scott Frost should be in there
Scott Frost would be eligible.
Well, here's the difference.
Is he? Well, he's right. I mean,
I think that the only reason why maybe he wouldn't get in is because he's still the active head coach at another place.
Well, he only coached 2 years.
Well,
he coached 2 years here only. I think they're going to hold that against him, obviously, to be more strategic. But yeah, I think the national titles make sense. Sure.
Well, the difference between someone like Scott Frost and somebody like Linda Gooch is that Linda Gooch has been around, remember, since 1984. She's been coaching this program for almost 4 decades now. So I would argue that if there's one exception to the active rule is if you are doing it for more than like if you're doing it for more than 3 decades and you're doing as good a job as she's done, then I think that she could be like the one exception I would make to that rule because of that.
This opens Pandora's box because then you have other things you can make exceptions for, such as the Gene McDowell issue.
There it is.
Opening the box.
A tradition unlike any other.
I didn't want to bring it up. Eric, what is the? I mean, Gene is up against the rule that if you're convicted of a crime.
Well, explain to the audience that may not be aware what happened, because Gene McDowell, this was again a hot topic, and from what I was told, again this year, every year it's been a hot topic of him.
Well, we have to remember Gene McDowell passed away in 2021, and his career ended at UCF in very inauspicious fashion, where he was the subject of a federal investigation regarding illegal cell phones back in or illegally authorized cell phones in the late 90s and mid-late 90s, and pled guilty to that. I think I forget the exact charges. I don't want to get them wrong, but caused him to resign his position. Now he did. He wasn't jailed. He was placed under, I believe, he was placed on probation. I think it was house arrest or something like that. But they didn't ship him off to Leavenworth. But nonetheless, that according to the rules of eligibility of the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame, he is not eligible for induction
because of the felony.
Right, because of the felony conviction. Now, by the way, the same applies to track and field's Afia. Is it or not Afia Charles, but
Ariel Scott had
Ariel
an issue
Scott
right off the field. Right.
Ariel Scott, who was UCF's first national champion. And I've made this case before, and I know that this gets debated, behind closed doors year in and year out. I understand the intention of the rule, but as a fan and as somebody who, and as an alumnus and as somebody who cares about, the history of UCF athletics, I think that if I don't think there are 2 reasons why I don't think the rule is a good thing to keep. The first one is it eliminates any chance of redemption by anybody. Having some sort of, final redemption of, whatever it is that they did wrong. If we're interested in people repenting for their sins, then let's actually show that. And the other issue I have is kind of a libertarian take, but, if you think that someone's off-field transgressions overshadow their on-field achievements to a point where you don't think that they should be inducted into UCF's Athletics Hall of Fame, then you know what? Don't vote for them.
There are people that are not. By the way, there are people.
That's fine, but there are people in that room, I'm sure, who, given the opportunity, would vote for Gene McDowell.
Perhaps, yeah, sure. But I mean, Drew, make a great point. Then you're opening up a Pandora's box, because Jay Bergman.
But are you though?
Yes, because Bruce Miller is not going to get into the Hall of Fame because of all the off-the-field issues he's had during his NFL career. Not pretty. If you Google his Bruce Miller, it was not pretty.
No, listen, I'm not defending. I'm not defending any of that.
Right, Jay Bergman, who is UCF baseball, will not get into the Hall of Fame because of how his career ended with an alleged incident that got him removed from UCF. So, to Drew's point, if you say, well, we'll let this one slide, you're opening up a Pandora's box to others And remember, this is the university's athletic hall of fame. And yes, whether you scoff at it or not, they're going to hold you to a higher standard than, a regular hall of fame or whatever, Drew.
There's one issue, and it's the same thing I brought before, is the consistency and putting it out there. There's nothing that, there are people who still hold out hope that Bergman and McDowell will get in. I mean, you look at what they're contributed to UCF, and they most certainly deserve it. Absolutely. When you take out how their careers ended, the rest of their
on-field in-sport achievements.
Yeah, it warrants it. However, there's nothing specifically that says what a candidate has to do to be qualified and disqualified from consideration. But you've already basically had the executioner come and take them out without ever without it ever being put out there. I think that's wrong. If you're gonna,
I agree. I think
so. You agree with me, Drew, that if you're going to open up the Pandora's box, if people don't think that they should be in, then just don't vote for them.
Well, you've got to make the qualifications clear. If someone has a convicted felony against them is grounds for disqualification, put it out there. Don't just make it a silent thing. Put it out there.
Well, it is out there though.
But
I think to Drew's point, it's not out there like on document. Hey, right? It's kind of within the room. It's kind of been talked about. It's not out in public, right? There's not an announcement that says.
Double check that.
It's not an FAQ. It's not. There's not like an FAQ section,
But there should be something.
It is posted on UCF's website. The qualifications for nomination.
All right. Well, we'll check into that. But
no, I've already checked into it. I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Well, then they did put it out. I mean, but you know how you avoid this? Don't commit a felony. Yeah, not that hard. I'm sorry. I don't feel bad about it.
I know it's not that I don't feel bad about it.
No, and I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying. I mean, it's not.
In fact, I support based as long as the university is consistent with their.
I agree with that.
I'm cool with that.
And let me defend the. Let me defend the committee. Maybe that's the committee calling right now.
Oh boy.
It's had some changes. They've had changes as far as different people have run it over the years. That's probably why it's not. I think it's still evolving. And I think I'll say this. I think the last few years, it's gotten a lot better. Like if you watch,
it's gotten a lot more formal, and I think that is a good thing.
Yes,
that is a step in the right direction.
Bryson could tell you, there were some Hall of Fame classes in the 90s, 2000. He was reading it off to me one night, and I wanted to throw up. There was a year where 3 administrators got in, which was a joke. No, am I right, Bryson? Am I not right?
Yes, you're not right. But speaking of administrators, another name that is mired in a little bit of scandal is former UCF president John Hitt.
Yeah, he's not in this class either. Yeah.
What do you do about that?
Right. Was he convicted? Here's the language, and forgive me for interrupting, but I want to get this out there. That this is the language according on UCF's website for eligibility for being nominated for the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. Here it is: good citizenship, and I quote: "To be eligible for selection, the former student athlete." Or the former student. This is in regards to student athletes, and I'll get to other contributors in a second. Former student athlete must possess and shall have demonstrated qualities of sportsmanship, character, and integrity. The individual is not eligible if they have previously been convicted of or pled guilty to any felony criminal activity. Same thing with the accomplished Knights category, which is and also honorary letter winners.
It's in all three.
It's in all three.
It's all three.
I want it, and that wording is crystal clear. The individual is not eligible if they have previously been convicted of or pled guilty to any felony criminal activity.
And as we know, I don't think Bergman was.
We don't know what happened. Apparently that was settled. Right.
I don't think any charges were pressed.
I don't think charges were not pressed
that we're aware of. But
obviously, in Gene McDowell's standpoint,
Gene McDowell did plead guilty.
He did plead guilty to a felony. From the whole cell phone scandal thing. So he would fall under disqualification or the good citizenship rule But Jake Bergman gets a little bit of a gray area. But then you get to the other half of the good sportsmanship. To be eligible selection, the individual must possess and shall have demonstrated qualities of sportsmanship, character, and integrity. This is definitely a character question mark, and I could see how that could play against him.
That's true. That's a good point. And by the way, I should clarify what I said before. McDowell pled guilty to lying to federal authorities who were investigating the cell phone scam.
And to give a little more background, the cell phone scandal popped up. UCF was at Nebraska in '97, and all of a sudden we're getting all these free phone calls at a time when things were not free, and people started asking questions.
Yeah, it was. He was. So
he was tipped off from others of what was going on, and lied to the authorities about it.
Yeah. So I just it's.
Some people say
I mean, the debate that they're having in that room
it's been going on for years.
Has been going on for years, and it's analogous to the very debate we're having right now.
Well, because then you go, well, as we know, the difference between misdemeanor and felony is the 1 year mark. If you get past 1 year on potential jail time, it's a felony, but under that, it's a misdemeanor. So obviously this became a felony because it potentially had more than a year's worth of jail time. Obviously it was, as part of the plea, it was negotiated out. He didn't serve time. But one thing, the big thing that's coming in with the debate is the nature of the felony. So it was a nonviolent crime, and as some people say, it was a victimless crime, which I disagree on the victimless. We just don't necessarily view them as victims. Basically, the cell phone companies that were involved with this, they were the victims because they were being stolen from. People may view that, it's a big bad company. The law's the law. If you don't like it, change the law. Until the laws change, it's the law. They were stealing, and he lied about it. So when you look at, and I respect this, they have a very cut and dry policy on this. Be consistent. That's the only thing I ever ask is be consistent. I think
they've been in that category. There's other things they haven't been. Like it used to be, if you didn't graduate, you weren't eligible. Now all of a sudden, there's some gray area there. So I mean,
no, but listen.
You look at the term of alumni.
Right.
If you actually look at the literal definition, does not necessarily mean you graduated.
Right. I agree.
So this is
I think to me that's the one big thing. I don't believe just because you don't graduate, you should still get into the UCF Hall of Fame, because in a lot of these sports, you're probably leaving early to do your profession that you wanted to do. Football players,
not necessarily.
What I'm saying,
I don't think that part is.
You're going to punish a football player for leaving early and not make him eligible in the Hall of Fame?
What I'm saying is it's not necessarily that they're going to leave early or not. It shouldn't be a rule at all.
Right. I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. Right.
You've attended UCF. That's what matters. You didn't get thrown out of UCF.
Right, which is why Ryan Schneider will not get in.
You left on your own accord,
right.
Which either by transfer or you go to the draft or something. You left on your own accord, or in the coach, you get a new job, and you do it by the book. You're basically doing the right stuff. You're not getting thrown out for forging attendance documents or anything of the sort. That you're right. That's a disqualifier, because then there's your integrity part.
Yep.
All right. So spinning forward to this,
let's go positive here. I like the class.
I want to. The class is really good. Obviously, I want to give a special shout out to Christina Sarf. Rowing is always, I feel like, underrepresented in UCF athletics accolades, and congrats to her. She got in, and we've seen how good rowing has been over the last few years.
First All-American in rowing history.
Yeah, rowing was UCF volleyball's dominance before UCF volleyball dominance.
Yeah, they won 6 in a row. Yeah,
five in a row. 5 in a row. Yeah,
COVID ruined all that.
They've gotten a little bit colder as some of the other, SMU has risen up, and then they got screwed in the 2021 year with the Ivy League backdooring into the NCAA finals. Still sore about that.
Despite not rowing.
Yeah, I'm still sore about that.
Yeah, because Drew had tickets to Sarasota. No, Sarf's the first rower. I like the fact rowing's being represented. Drew, what's your thoughts? Joe Burnett, Latavius Murray. We asked Kyle about that. What's your perspective on these two? I had to explain. This is bad, man. We're old. I had to explain to Bryson that Joe Burnett's a legit Hall of Fame guy. He's like, what? Please explain to young Bryson.
Well, I Joe Burnett's as a gimme. Actually, my issue is with Latavius Murray, not the fact of that he's getting in, but when he's getting in. I think there were players, and I'd have to look again at the list because we talked about this. I went with players that were before Murray because they were there at an earlier time, and my thought is Murray's time would come, but let's not mince words. There is a natural favoritism towards football. I mean, football drives the gravy train.
And current football guys that have been around the program and have done well in the NFL.
Yeah, he's been in the NFL since the 2013 season. Obviously he's getting closer to the twilight of his career, but he's had a good career. I remember the year that you had Brandon Marshall, Latavius Murray, and Blake Bortles leading all their positions in touchdowns. I mean, it was the year of UCF. I think it was 2014. It was the year of UCF. So Murray's proven it on the field, both in the pros.
Well, he got screwed because O'Leary kept using Ronnie Weaver over him.
Well,
come on, George.
It wasn't Ronnie Weaver. It was Bryn Harvey.
Bryn Harvey,
Ronnie Weaver.
No. Let's be real. Let's be real. Bryn Harvey was an amazing.
No, I like Bryn.
He got hurt.
I agree.
He wasn't the same afterwards.
That's
and
true.
Before
there's a reason Bryn Harvey kept Latavius Murray second on the depth chart for 3 years.
Now, 2009, Murray was hurt. He was out for the year, and he got in the doghouse when he tried to transfer away and came back
to Syracuse. By the way,
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Well, he's from New York.
He's originally from Central New York. That's right.
He's from New York.
He's getting into the Hall of Fame up there too, I believe. In that
probably for his high school.
Probably his high school. Yeah.
He's an amazing athlete. We make no bones about it. But it is not coincidence that Bryn Harvey started over Murray until Bryn got hurt because he was really good. He was really good. Now, Ronnie Weaver, he was always just around and kept siphoning carries. I mean, he was a walk-on. He was one of the hardest working guys of the team. He's a guy you feel good about, but I mean, they had better guys on the team. They should have been utilizing more. But I would have looked at a player that played a few years prior. I wouldn't have put Linda Gooch in at this point. I would have waited. Maybe the 2007 championship team should have gone in instead of Gooch because it's been that long and that team won the national title. Yeah. They deserve.
Talking about the cheerleading team 15-year anniversary. They have the 2003 team is in.
Right.
That could have been a possibility if they would have wanted to go that route. What other football guys are you thinking there like years earlier though? Are you thinking of Alex Haynes who played at running back? Are you thinking?
Well, I liked Alex Haynes as a player, and at the time, from a historical standpoint, he was good. But when you look at it more modern, it makes him kind of mitigates what he did on the field. He was the starting running back of that 2004 train wreck.
It wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault, but I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Actually, and this is a little bit of bias here, I lean towards Atari Bigby as a guy.
I love Atari Bigby.
He's always been a personal favorite of mine. My brother was his math tutor when they lived in CVI and both survived to tell the tale. But I lean more towards him. I mean, Haynes was good, but Bigby was basically John Lynch in a UCF uniform. I mean, that guy knew how to work the hit stick.
I
agree. Well,
he should be. I would not be surprised if he gets in maybe the next couple of years. I think the thing that's hurt Bigby probably is he's played during that independent MAC years, which is kind of
so did Haynes. I mean, Haynes.
Right, and they're not in. That's what I'm saying. I think those guys got hurt.
Well, Asante Samuel did too.
Well, I think his NFL career helped him in that one.
If you want to really start nitpicking, Asante Samuel's college career is nothing compared to Bigby's.
Well, but again, this is my point. I think Samuel because remember, and this is where I know you don't necessarily get in just because of your UCF career. If you had a great NFL career, that you can get in that way too, like Brandon Marshall did back in 2019. So the NFL career helps. That's why football has an advantage. Josh Sitton last year got inducted he had a nice UCF career, but he's had a great NFL career. So yes, I think Asante Samuel got him in because of his good. Now he was really good in college. You're making it sound like he was.
No. He did have a shortened career at his time at UCF. I believe it was only 3 years. I think it was.
I don't remember all that.
It was either 2 or 3 years. And the fact that he kind of he got overshadowed a little bit by Travis Fisher, who kind of came out
drafted super high.
It was drafted before him. The year before him.
Yeah, Fisher was after the 2002 season, which like shocked the daylights out of me. I was very surprised. But that's also another player that we could potentially see come down the pipe.
He's another candidate. Yeah.
Fisher, Asia Burley,
You want an old time category there, right? That's kind of like the baseball veterans committee. It sounds like you're pushing for that.
Well, I mean, you got Joe Burnett, 2005. It was his freshman year. It's 2005 to 2008. You're looking at that. Maybe Quincy McDuffie, who is the best returner UCF has ever
Quincy
had.
McDuffie is a good
choice.
Hall of Fame.
We're going to remove the recency bias here. There is no better returner in UCF history than Quincy McDuffie. The stats back it up.
It's true.
I wouldn't. I'd still take Mike Hughes over him. Sorry.
You could take Mike Hughes all you want.
I'm taking Joe Burnett over him. Joe Burnett was the UCF offense in 2008.
Drew, you mentioned this earlier. You mentioned how
I was waiting for a sarcastic response from Drew there, and he just paused on me.
Not really wrong. But
no, weren't we all rooting in 2008 like, man, can they just punt the ball to Joe Burnett? That's the only chance we're going to have to score. Or if our defense scores, because we know
I remember we were like, can we please switch Joe Burnett to the offensive side of the ball?
Yes. There you go. 2 ways.
I was asking Drew because you mentioned this earlier. You mentioned how you talk about how you want these old hats, but the fact of the matter is, at this moment, these old hats are getting ignored. I, for one, for instance, have as far as old-timey football guys, really want to see Mark Nonson get in because he has the second most receiving.
Still up there receiving.
Only one UCF receiver since then has gotten more yards than, and Nonson's nowhere near Hall of Fame. The point is that these old hats have not really seemed to have gotten much consideration yet. Latavius Murray, he's considering when he played, he's starting to kind of slip into that kind of hat because he played now over a decade ago. Like he graduated over a decade ago, because let's not forget, normally NFL running backs don't have as long careers as Latavius Murray has had, which is a big credit to him, by the way. And so getting him in now, once his NFL career looks to be in his twilight, allows him to induct him in a time where he's still fairly relevant and not letting him slip into that old hat period where maybe the people on the committee might forget about him in favor of people that were on those, like the 2017 team, which is really close to coming.
Well, if you want to go with the decade thing, he needs to wait another year. He did play the 2012 season. So he needs to wait another year, and then he would hit that decade point. But I mean, you're right. There are a lot of older players from yesteryear that deserve consideration.
Well, I've said grow the class. Like, I think you grow the number. Like, all the other schools induct 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we are. We're going with 5. Which I think hurts other sports more so than football. I think football is going to always get 2, but other sports get hurt by that. Absolutely.
Look at basketball. Out of the modern era, I think it's just Jermaine Taylor. Michael Donald not in.
Josh Pepper's not in. Neither is Dexter Lyons.
And while sure, their pro careers may have taken them to Europe, and that's not the professionals leagues here, and so that's kind of looked as a minor thing. But the value and the impact they had here was huge. Men's basketball was the sport at the end of the Atlantic Sundays. Football was floundering in the MAC. The women's basketball was kind of just floating along, but they really weren't the leader of it. You had baseball, you had men's basketball, and we have players like Matt Fox and Justin Pope and Mike Roth. and well, D Brown's already in for baseball.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's true.
And Mike Maroth, guys.
Marat's not in. Yeah, he's not in. There's a lot of bases
who have done a lot, from that era and have been kind of forgotten about. We're already you're seeing everyone that's getting in is from a more modern era now. It's like they've shifted past those guys. So Justin Pope is in, but the other guys aren't.
Arnold in. Well, again, if you grow the class, I think you have a better shot of including more people from different eras in. That's what I've been pushing for. Go to 6-7 a list, and I think you have a little bit more wiggle room than you currently do. I would not want to be a committee member in the years to come at all. If you're going to stick to 5.
I'm going to say,
well, good luck.
Eric, you're qualified to do it. I think you know more than most of these cats.
But I mean, it's just going to get harder. Like,
good. If it was
that's great. That's great for the university. That means we have a lot of people worth getting in, possibly.
No, but the problem is you guys are trying to make cases for athletes in the 90s, 2000s. They got no shot getting in with some of the athletes coming in. Like, for example, next year, Shelby Turnier, the softball All-American, is ineligible. She's going to get in.
What you're trying to say is you need a veterans committee. Got it.
Baseball. Yeah, I would be for that. I think that could help. I really do.
I nominate Eric Lopez to run the veterans committee.
Can I just? I'm cool with that.
I will say I want to end this with this Hall of Fame stuff with a little bit of optimism though, because we last year we had our first track and field athlete in Afia Charles.
Yeah.
This year we have our first rower in Christina Sarp. I'm really hoping that this is a sign of a more open committee that is open to letting other sports in. Of course, we also have Anne-Marie Blaney coming up in the next couple of years. She could probably be the first cross country. There are other sports that haven't made it.
Women's golf, Ashley Holder could get in for women's golf in a few years if they don't, there's some ones they've kind of skipped over. Yeah. I mean, I think the committee's doing a better job. Carlos McCanns is now running it from running it, and I think he's done a fantastic job from what I'm hearing. I think it's getting better. I think the problem was it was so abysmal like 20 some years ago. Again, look at some of the classes they put. What was that one year? They put literally 2 presidents and an AD, and it was disgusting.
Well, you know what? If you don't have enough people that are worth it, don't do it.
It's not that.
It's disgraceful what they did that one year. I forget.
I mean, it's not inducing like physiological symptoms.
No, it is. I feel
nausea or malaise. Or
although Drew's commentary in this segment has made me feel better. I've enjoyed this.
Well, listen. Our
there's your optimism right there.
Our campaign continues to those who may be listening. We volunteer as tribute to assist the committee in any way, shape, manner, or form possible. In trying to tell the story of UCF athletics, which is what we're all pretty good here. One last little bit of news that we wanted to get out before we move on. Bryson Turner, Canadian amateur. We have a UCF winner of the Canadian amateur, the 117th Canadian Men's Amateur Championship. Luis Carrera, 4-day total 274, 2 strokes ahead of second place finisher at Point Grey Golf and Country Club in Vancouver, Canada. He is yet another off-season trophy coming home for a UCF golfer, Bryson.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to see that happen. I mean, Jess Baker, of course, taking home the women's amateur out in England was a very exciting thing to see. And now to see Carrera do it on the men's side, I think it establishes some confidence going forward because golf does have a fall schedule that they do, but of course spring is their big one. But I'm very excited to see what they do. We now are going to be able to get to see Carrera because he now has a bid into the 2023 RBC Canadian Open and the 2022 US Amateur on August 15 to 22nd with fellow UCF men's golfer Igor Eroshenko, who's also going to be there. So much congratulations to Carrera that he brought home a purse of 1,200 Canadian dollars. So making a little money as he can being an amateur, getting that. So very well done for him. And once again, increasing the presence of UCF golfers on the world golf stage.
Now, important question for you, Bryson, is the Canadian exchange rate favorable at this time to make that winnings worth it?
I actually looked it up. So 1,200 Canadian dollars, according to what I just used Google for this, is the equivalent of $939.91 US dollars at the moment. So
$931.91.
$939.
$939.91.
So unfortunately, that $999 deal for that new computer, you still cannot afford.
Well,
but what's the taxes on that? That's the other thing.
Well, yeah, you got to.
By the way, that doesn't exactly preclude the fact that supply chain issues and whatnot being what they are. If you can even get the computer. And listen, we're getting too far afield here. Congrats to Luis, he deserves it, and we're really happy for him. All right, so that'll do it for us for the show. We got some events coming up this weekend. We're starting to really fire things up. Don't forget, Friday night is the Charge On Tour downtown Orlando down on Wall Street. Saturday from 1 to 3 at the arena is the Fan Fest, where you get to interact with not just UCF football, but also I understand volleyball and soccer will be there too. I know volleyball will be there for that, so you get to meet them, get posters signed, pictures, you name it. It's a fun time. I'm bringing my kids. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then don't forget, the only one who's men's soccer is playing Tampa in an exhibition on Saturday, and women's soccer is playing an exhibition against Miami 4:30 on Friday. But those are exhibition matches. We are now 1 week away from the first regular season UCF athletic event of 2020 to 2023, with women's soccer taking on the Florida Gators at 6 p.m. on Thursday, August the 18th. Next week, Todd Dagenet, head coach of UCF Volleyball, joins us to preview his team. We'll get the lowdown on the Knights as they aim for a 5th consecutive conference championship. For all of us here at Black Gold Banneret, of course, you can follow us individually. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. You can follow Kyle, who was with us earlier, at the SOTG for the student of the game. Follow Bryson at It's Bryson Turner. Follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. And follow Drew at StatBoyDrew. Follow us all collectively at UCF Banneret_SBN. We are hovering around 700 followers, guys. I want to try and see if we can push for 1,000 before the start of football season. We got plenty of time to do it. Guys, if you don't follow us, make sure you double check. Let's try and get to 1,000 as well. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube as well. Just search for Black Gold Banneret, where you get all the latest from the press conferences that we're able to get to. And thanks, of course, as always, to the UCF Sports Communication staff for all their help in enabling us and helping us get that content to you, the interested UCF fan. If you don't subscribe to our podcast, please do. We're on Apple and Android devices. If you do subscribe, please leave us a rating as well. Tell your friends about it. Make sure you follow us as well. For all of us here at the Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the week. Hope to see you at FanFest. And we are just 1 week away from real live UCF sports. See you next week.